Good evening. Welcome to another night of Tuesdays for the poetry. I am your host and resident poet, Gary Dale Burns, and we have tonight a very special evening. I know that you would rather be watching season three of I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson, but hey, I've got something for you here. I've got some original poetry, just like he's got some original sketch comedy. I will also be performing for the first time on the East Coast. I will be performing some songs from a cassette that I self-released in a very limited number called Occidental Stories back in the year 2011. Uh, Up until that point, I had been trying to write music for about 4 years. I had a split EP released with my friend Alec Morin. Shout out to Alec, and it was wonderful. I was performing around Portland, and whether it was a bar, whether it was a small venue, whether it was at Portland State University's Food for Thought Cafe in the basement of the Smith Memorial Union, it was a great time. So I'd love to share that with you. I feel ready to share that with you. I've got my binder ready at the ready, and I also have my poems. So we're still reading from the third volume of uh, my writing, the complete poetry, complete up until this moment of Gary Dale Burns. I've got my vitamin water with me. Uh, as you see, vitamin water, not sponsored, by the way, but if water wants to sponsor this poetry reading, that would be great. It says essential, the orange vitamin water, and I really love that it says orange dash orange. It's not just orange; it's orange essential water, vitamin water, and that's just how I like it. This is the best stuff. I've got some here. Hydrate myself. I can already feel my throat becoming hydrated because outside, if you are in this region, we have very poor air quality. We have unhealthy air quality, red level air quality, according to the NOAA, and this is because of wildfires that are happening in Quebecois. Sorry, in Quebec, to the Quebecois, and I feel for southern Quebec. My ancestors are from southern Quebec, and on my grandfather's side, my mother's dad, and this is this was an opportunity for myself to have some conversation with my students, to talk to them about climate change, to talk to them about this century and how these sorts of events will continue. Some of them said, "Oh, I thought wildfires only happen in the West." So this idea that like climate change events and human influenced changes are happening elsewhere really came right to them. They were able to look out there and they were said, is that the sun? Is that the moon? They were confused about how um, sharp and clear the sun looked through the clouds. They were confused about that. They wondered at the fact that they could see the very sharp outline of the disk of the sun. um, they figured it was a moon because that was the only close heavenly body that they've seen, such a sharp outline. But they saw the eye of the sun today, and they were confused by it. Try to bring them some knowledge. Air Now is a website that you can go to that actually, excuse me, has some up to date air quality monitoring, and they actually are able to show the extent to which this poor air quality is reaching. In the morning, it was not affecting the Massachusetts and other East Coast states that are close to the ocean, but it has moved and is now moving over the ocean. So we're only just now getting, I'm seeing outside my window, we're only just now getting some water droplets. So perhaps um, the rains will come and that H2O will bond with some of this particulate matter that is in the air and bring it down to Earth. Um, so, vitamin water, essential. Orange, orange. So, let's start the evening off. I'm so happy. I feel like I've turned a corner with Tuesdays for the Poetry. This is the 13th night. Lucky 13. Um, it's 2011. I am 25, going on 26, and I am having a hell of a time. I'm in a relationship that is at this point that is falling apart. A relationship I felt very strongly about, but the differences between us just could not be worked out. And also, I myself was um, distant and despondent. And there was a warm and loving family from her side, but um, I didn't feel like I could continue investing in the relationship. I didn't know how to get through a very shocking and life changing moment that we had between us. And I'm not going to get into that because that's something between myself and my ex partner. But um, also, 2011 is the junior year of my English degree at Portland State University. I mentioned many of my English degree at Portland State University. I mentioned many Tuesday nights ago that there was um, a different degree that I was going for when I first moved to Portland, Oregon, and that was art. That was printmaking. I was going to be a printmaker, and I was studying for my printmaking degree. And then I completely changed tracks and I started studying psychology. And I thought, oh, I can understand myself, I can understand my family members, I can understand my friends, I can have better insights into my relationship. And I thought, um, psychology is the way that I'll be able to academically sort of like move forward with myself. So that did not come to pass. I entered fully into psychology as a academic subject, and the human being, this is how I've sort of put it over the years, the human being for me in the study of psychology just completely disappeared, and all I saw were labels, psychoses, um, systems in place through government funding or otherwise that manage and micromanage the different ailments that a human being has. Um, and seeing that there was a kind of disconnect, for me at least, between what is essential about a human being and what is their psychology, and that gap then gradually grew, and then I asked myself, what is the thing that I have kept up with through my 20s and my young adult life, and what that was reading and writing. I wrote my poetry. I By 2011 I had begun a blog which you can still check out if you'd like. I did not expect to be plugging this evening, but Waves of Guide, WAVESOFGUIDES, this evening, but Waves of Guide, WAVESOFGUIDES.blogspot.com. This was a Blogger era blog. If you guys remember Blogger, if you guys remember Flickr, that's where I'm getting a lot of these old photos of myself that I'm posting up on Instagram. But I digress. I just meant to bring up that I was on my junior year of being at Portland State University, and I have to shout out my good friend Nelson and Debo, who completely inspired me to be firm and grasp the rod as the old Mormon in me relates to, and to walk the path, walk the righteous path to a bachelor's of arts in English. And he helped me so much with that. Also, I have to give a shout out to Loretta Stinson and Tony Wolk and Sandra Friels, and oh gosh, Elizabeth Seppi and Maud Hines, and oh my gosh, Gregory Gochin. I don't even know if that guy's still alive. An Armenian American professor of English at Portland State University, which who completely blew my mind and tore down everything that I knew about literature and about literary criticism. So much so that I could not stay in his course, but at the same time, he challenged me. So I had professors who challenged me, and then I had Nelson, who really inspired me as a peer, someone who I saw at Portland State that instead of just getting stoned and musing on in the classroom, which I was getting very frustrated with a lot of my peers in my large classes, um, Nelson showed me that you could closely read and you could fuel constructive discussion in the classroom if you really wanted to, if you really felt passionate enough about literature. And gosh, we attempted to learn Greek together. We went to a Secret Chiefs 3 concert together. He had me over at his home in Portland. Treated me like family, and he's getting married in October. So congratulations to him and his wife to be Elizabeth. While as he's at the same time finishing up his PhD at Stanford. So stand up guy, stand up guy. Anyways, we're 12 minutes in, so maybe I should talk a little bit longer and start on the 13th minute, because then I would really make this so super lucky. So Storm and Spout is the first poem of this evening. It was written on January 12th, 2011. And I'm still sort of in a relationship and gradually falling out of it. Another big thank you for this year goes out to Matthew Thomas Ross, a brother, a friend who was always there for me when stuff fell apart, and who was a compatriot through many a brunch at Stepping Stone Cafe at 2390 Northwest Quimby Street in Portland, Oregon, 97210, where I spent 7 years off and on as a busser, dishwasher, server, everything. So here's Storm and Spout. Tornado came through, but you stayed asleep. My screaming drawn up the cyclone of your mind devising that talkative and worrisome Kansas girl in sepia hit in the head by a window. The frames teeter-totter. Her innocence and experience fold the celluloid like origami. Your ears enlarge the weather. I keep screaming for you to wake. The wooden dream turns to pitch. Winds are blowing, shaking the old glass. In their panes of white, our three-legged cat paws my face. I arise, make tea and write as a winter storm passes through. And still, you sleep. Visitors. Seagulls flew far inland this winter. Geese aren't southbound any further. Our river shores honk while the rooftops squawk, and their shit is in great abundance. They've been sent or brought by brain and feather for new foods to be sought after, with ritualized habits, even older dances, circling a tropical updraft, threading the bridge's suspension, Gliders on hollow bones touch ground and give us all a beak tip bow. They do not sing to surmise as starling or the crow. They fly not to beehive or nest like chickens in a row. No hands as masked raccoon or tails like wormy rat. This valley of green and brown talks to me with foreign sounds. Hungering, it called them out of northern frost and drought. Drought, our river feels this winter from cities along its banks of stone, taking the meat and keeping the bones, and so appease the goal. The visitors are claiming place and calling home the rock dove's year round rainy den. That was Visitors, a poem about seagulls and other birds. I'm fond of birds, definitely fond of birds. Okay, next poem is called Return. Back to the room, to the innards of dirty laundry and sticky soda puddles at the bottom of plastic cups, where the wire screens of windows digitize my young eyes. So I look rather back to the television, back to my mind inside a video game, 20 hours through its epic story, and in between a few breaths of air. Outside, running over fences, gashed hands, shooting baskets of blood and sweat. And yes, tears after falling from a tree, then back indoors to the guts of our bodies grumbling at the nadir of youth's grip. That was a contemplative poem about my past and my brother and video games, really. Where does rain end and snow begin? The success of a wet dream bears the children of snow. Fields of flakes, big ones, that you stare into infinitely, attempting to cast a hook through, the slow crystal falling, wrangling a new sense of gravity out of the skynet, which the twin brains in a walnut shell do not know that they know by now. This fishless rain of no definite shape falls too fast to catch. But wait a short while for the sense to return of your body on earth receiving gifts from his plentiful basket, or merely precipitation. So much rain in Portland. We got a viewer. Thanks for joining. Untitled poem from February 2011. She dips her paw into the water bowl like a cupped hand I'd bring to my mouth out of a stream in glens unknown to her paws on her wet nose could smell the moon showers. Dinah in the kitchen, a sister creation, napping now on this chair. That one's for Dinah. Long ago cat I once knew. Beautiful cat, Burman cat, three-legged cat. Blue tip, Burman. Blue tips, flame tips. Had one of both. Okay, so we got a prose poem next called Of This Ice Age. Of This Ice Age. When the books are no longer profitable and the great human chrysalis ends, my pen will fall covered by hourglass sand. And this same sand will fill our television and halt the works of disaster which had until then infinitely displayed themselves. History's diarists, relax your hands. A beached whale shall mate with the shipwreck of a flood myth. Turning over a leaf both new and old, our seasons will divide and be only twofold. Snows melting in summer sun and grasses iced by the winter voice shall shout and shine together. This beautiful clashing, this sublime terror. Buried Nunatex, towering above the hidden Lake Vostok, both will be revealed. Some events are difficult to imagine. Outside of the memory bank, their value is obscure. In that region of death, a forbidden zone of cinemas, we'll discover a mass jutting out of the sand. The weavers shall coat with their tongues its dark grit. From buzzing to bleeping, language will sing what our senses lost feeling of. Hearing these songs may keep us alive enough to give some words, some music of worth to another, someone other than ourselves. Next one is called Trios. It's sort of like a poem in reverse. As best I can describe it. The thunder blast before a flash of lightning called the puddles to expand and swallow up the rain. The spent heat of a match was not the renewal of a sexual union, but it has taken from our air the stink of fire. Forwards little, backwards much, I missed your advice and took liberties of error as guideposts, my condensation a couch. Leave everything on the threshold, and soon enough my home will either bring it all inside or feed it unto the snarling elements. There is nothing better than a big fat baby, rich in sensation soup, handled with pride, fed with false hopes, and bathed in worry. Orange, orange. Okay, the moment. The moment. I like this one. I still like this one. Here we go. The moment. This is the moment spring ascends through the virile principles of cherry blossom branches covered by the sweet shadows of snow, pungent and bright. That strong chest shaking bark of the storefront's old dog when his master arrives. Winged ants with long feelers in my arm hairs and beard, groping for their purpose in flight. The waning of a sap moon whose pedigree shook our world's egg of becoming, whose reins we are awashing. This same moment, spring descends by a passage through the earth's lungs of root and pulp, by a coitus of sheer luck and many powers of 10, by a trance ending of old ravages the animal could no longer bear. By this day, this light which has brought both horror and reprieve, you and I know this moment meets, yet have we made enough space or time to greet it? Oh, should have planned this out. There's a painting that this next poem is about, and it's called "The Glamour of Paris" by Dupree. And I, I'm just wondering. Okay, let me just put this in the chat so you guys can look at this up. So, "The Glamour of Paris" by Dupree. So this was in a. It's mainly it's a painting that looks up the Champs-Élysées in Paris, and but there's a woman who's sitting on a bench, and she's very lonely, and the rain is coming down, and it's a very impressionistic influence painting, but it was in the foyer of a building known as the Rasmussen on Northeast Gleason Street in Portland. I lived there for a few years with my partner at that time, and it was so interesting because the Rasmussen had this neon sign in front of it, and I remember years before noticing this building and being like, "Oh, that seems like a really interesting place to live. I'd like to live there." And then I ended up living there, and this was the painting that would greet you when you would come into the front door. So this is the poem based on the painting, based on my experiences there. The Glamour of Paris by Dupré. The glamour of Paris by Dupré welcomes each entering into the lobby of my residence. Whether stranger or neighbor, she, and I mean the seated lady, will always give her greeting from the Champs-Élysées in the faux gilded gold of her cheap facsimile. Colorful swathes of pink and red, cobblestone shining with blues, everyone dancing in unison and gossiping over the news, except for that lady alone on the street bench of solitude. The row of mailboxes, the glamour of Paris by Dupré. Above our false fireplace, she sits forever in black and gray. Did her husband pass away? Is she maid to a mother and children, or just drab, plain, modest as Bronte's Jane? She gazes at the carriage passing by, laughter overheard, whispers hidden by hands or fans over faces as the wheels keep their turn, the horses their trotting. But her eyes follow nothing. Every laundry room visit, I walk to the basement, the glamour of Paris by Dupré. The lady who sees every decadent, campaigning for dresses with corsets close tight around an aesthetic. Parasols pass and twirl. The Nazis aren't marching yet, and bright is that world which hangs below the chandelier, except for the storm cloud, her gaze, her opiate stare. I will never see finished the glamour of Paris by Dupré. The painter composed the lady keep hold of every brushstroke in the grip of her periphery. So, like Return, the poem I read a few poems ago, this next poem is called The Boy's Bureau, and it is a childhood reminiscence um, based on a personal experience of mine being exposed to, I don't know if this is really a trigger warning, but being exposed to softcore pornographic imagery when I was probably younger than I should have seen. Um, so there it is. The Boy's Bureau. I am daydreaming of this memory. When we were still living back east, and I was a first grader at the school with a giant log chair on its front lawn, I walked home, even that young, alone, surmounting the broken tablets of sidewalk, sent skyward by tree roots, catching up to my fair haired classmate and neighbor, our apartment complex on Elm Street we shared without knowing. I follow him to a dresser of drawers, and he's excited to share something with me, like a treasured toy or secret to confide. He smiles inside with my camaraderie. The small baseball card he brings out has a bold red border, and within the line, a raven haired woman bore her parts through torn stockings or is plain nude upon the lost background. I remember not, but I stared at her dark, powerful form, pushing away, quitting him, trying to go. He held me, the blue eyed boy with the firm grip of an older child. But in my half blind struggle, I broke free and ran out of his room at the apartment door, though he followed, yelling, "Come back!" or "It's okay," whereupon the memory does conclude. I'm daydreaming of the boy, I who turned away, fingers repulsed by an electrical socket, that yet in the man of me feels. The boy ran away with its charge, stole her sex to be placed firmly on the cherished wooden altarpiece before all other educations. This memory, now in poetry, has face, a finer sense of features. I speak on the lips of its lawful geometry, that my loins may shiver no more kneeling in the cold of grass, blade tips long buried up to my chest. But it is more right to say, this boy, he never recalls rushing into home and burying his head into his mother's chest, because he took the gift to his own bureau, and within its drawer it will lay past the middle of his days. So 2011, I already expressed earlier, 2011 was a really, really quite a year. Let me turn this other light on real quick. Don't this one right here. It's a little weird though. See what I mean? It doubles up though. We've got this light and we've got this light, that light, and even a partly. We got 2.5 lights helping us out this evening. So 2011 landmark year. Also, because the next poem that I'm going to read actually is one that is included in the first full-length manuscript collection that I worked on from 2013 into 2016 about. So poems from 2011 to 2013 were sort of the seeds, and then more poems were written the first few years that I lived in New York City. So this is the beginning of Hugh Melody and other poems. It's called 5 Metrical Exercises. For some graceful ease, my good friends, behold desire, instead of being held like you were an Adam before an Eve. There is a plant in you, inside your throat is fruit. As oft you plant it, do a season's joys birth a tree in each garden of Gethsemane. Before you all departed, there were diseases to be granted, that you might know marks are gifted, and your voice vibrate with thanks. My good friends, taste the air, not by the snake's division. Behold desire as the lover's vision of a holy briar. Next poem is a haiku. In the waterfalls, the operatic ocean, both singing and terribly wounded. Okay, we've got a sonnet, sonnet 11 of 14 in my first self-published work. I'm sorry, second self-published work. 14 years, 14 sonnets. You can win 14 years, 14 sonnets if you continue to join me on these Tuesdays for the poetry, and I'll have some special prizes along with the chapbook of sonnets. So this is sonnet 11. Cursive script in black I've kept with me since then speaks for you just as when it brandished your attack. Of teeth I counted 41, of blade 2 daggers and arrows 9. The bow was pulled, the sword was blind, your pen had fashioned a lovely gun. Every poet's a sound, elitist. I heard your voice, I moved so quiet, under darkening skies of violet to stand where you'd strike cleanest. And hit you did with a force disarming, the naive shield over my heart's longing. I was really feeling the sonnets. We got sonnet 12 next. Here we go. Ritualizing inconsistently, tempting where the devil may lead a mortal man astray, a falter in faith presently. Birds coo and sing to their young in these blessed blooming trees, as my morning's plea on bent knees sounds like much repeating oft begun. Wishes of good health for friends, asking my Lord's close communion, bearing my crown, the seventh fruition, on my soul's growth this act depends. But with faith I cannot stand so tall, the morns I pin my prayer mat to the wall. Oh, we just got hit after hit here. Okay, next up, Liberation Poem number 4. Number 4. We've been through 3 of them. I believe this is the last of the cycle. There was not a Liberation Poem number 5, at least not yet, but there wasn't during this time period. So, Liberation Poem number 4. Here we go. Evangelists crow mercurial passages by the call of beckoning portents. Joys for the witness, sorrows for unseen circus men, shirking the welcome of our King. Their verses grow your dire diseases and laugh against whatever does please us. The bright technocratic age passes, and with our reason's pretense the monkey coddled, wired mesh teats with a single limb stretching out to meet no groping at air to feel his mother's vestige. And so, friends, brothers, and sisters, how does the barricade so differ whether made of crystal or steel? We break the body and it's made to feel pain from the colds or the heart's blister. Think without skating ice on your fingers. Listen with your ears removed of plastic. Space shuttle decommissioned, losses abound. Mold on the Bibles that we're lucky to have found. Those verses are never withered, but their pruned roots have nearly been severed. Listen to eccentric songs in orbit, voices caroling to religion of science. But the houses closed up against the weather, more violent than last year, year before last, or ever, hold gesticulated fears, and the children's compliance. When neither beneath the striped circus tent nor upon the causeway of cloud and trumpets, in the ring of the show or seat of judgment, the soul will be revealed as a plant, either browned, dead, or multiplied from pure intent. Your bedded head is resting on time's pillowcase. So out it slips from underneath your mind, that you awake rather than sleep through malnourished years, eternities deep. Pay close attention to the inhale of space. I wish for full compassion to color your face, that we might hold our heads up to the casement brow, the glassy iris, through each window into our souls, breathing but not fogging the reflection. 2 watery pools fathom deep thought. I know they're scary, screaming, loud, teacups and morning's crest and in the evening's crowd. But open wide the attic eye, and you might just free what needs to fly, along with crow-winged experiment, or with the seated, contemplating plant. Oh, okay, some early music. We're not to the music yet, but this is a little credo that I wrote that I sort of turned into a song. Venerate the saintly, da, 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 da. Keep an even keel, da, 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 da. Don't boast of the proud, da, 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 da. Praise only what heals, da, 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 da. So once again, that's venerate the saintly, venerate the saintly, keep an even keel. Don't boast of the proud, praise only what heals, as in healing the sick. We're in September 2011, and we have unharvested artichoke hearts. This is a good one. Unharvested artichoke hearts, purple flowering of the energy. Rows and rows, and God only knows how many spider strings weaved between stalk and head. I walk as the giant of some microcosmic canopy. Elsewhere, honeybees stroll a heap. The guillotined gathered together, a picnic table for yellow scavengers, feast of the saint of late reaping. Hastily sickled as the harvesters left to visit the Peter Iredale, still sinking. Coastline summer stars afire, indelible arrangements, figgy sweetness. The constellations all with shape and flavor, for astronomers to taste, artists to dance, under tongue, under toe of the ancient wheelbarrow, and savor the relished nightfall. By and by we part of beast and yoke, nestle our senses in fermenting oils, to purify what we wish to preserve, with too much or too little winter. Unharvested artichoke hearts, now bent toward the Kaaba of cold. Here's another musical one. It's called Solitude, but I start each line with a different musical note. So la ti do re mi fa sol, la ti do re mi fa sol la. Um, so I won't say that when I recite it, but just know that each line has that music to it. Solitude, languid farmer, tilling the soil barren, doting on the weeds, red skin rashes and burns that milk have to soothe in the morning. Father taught him right. Solitude is the laughter of a mime. Ticks nervous but performed, dovetailed decision reversed company under his eyelids. Mitigated behavior to the halls of silence. Fawn wounds soliciting for pity, lapping up water pools till the belly is full and bloated. Downing a coonskin cap, do you remember the kill? Mississippi palindrome, written not out farther than the eye could see. Solitude, closer than you'd like to be. Latitude of infinite degree. Time forsworn to protect, double-backed rest in the tall grass. Mince a new coin of country. Favored by Eros, sold to his lover in exchange, land for land, timorous beggar, down upon the corner, requesting new seeds, migrant on a foreign mound, falling to his weathered knees, sol ti do. Okay, still September. Still a good few left. Oh, we got another song too that's just a cappella, so that's fun. The next one is called "The Pledge of Faith" or "Pledge Song." So already been thinking about these poems as songs. The poems of liars assure you of otherworldly joys without first bringing you to hell. Their words taste so sweet, sweetly spoken on the tongue, leaves one with toothaches. You fill the holes with cloves, bite your finger in so doing, as if blood might bind your aching to the I-jing of the liar's poetry. Their pain grown out of pleasure, shrieks of the soil, not the seed. This quality cannot be bequeathed. Is death not the holy process by which less becomes more? Then joys beyond, leached by the present. Parasites, not symbiotes, silver's edge and black of space are so sunlight may shadow cast, and earth might strike the astronaut's face. I ask of Dante, nothing more of his commedia. That dark Beatrice had not asked him in so leaving for the heavens. Shout out to Gillian. Give me the vitamin water. Okay, got two haikus. Two haikus now. The flying moth gave me the sense of my right ear. Playing with your hair in front of me, I cannot turn my head all the way. The library at night. Why? Why were all the lights on in the library tonight? Was our knowledge taken from the library tonight? While the bright star shone in the east was Arcturus, or an old Jupiter showing his graces to us from this sky set lantern? I searched the lost among these haunts, that pub closing up, the bicycle unlocked, those failures of chance love's gamblers cast, then two black rocks turn up and up. When? Where did they roll off the 23rd Western Avenue? At coffee time? Or Joe's? No, it was the Stone. That's the same it's always been. From morning until night, the place where thieves and teens and vagrant types write books of their misfortune for the induction into the stacks of the library at night. Oh, this is big. All right. Next poem was published. Cutter Williams, shout out to him in Kentucky. He created a literary magazine called Cavalcade, and this is from the second issue that was published in the summer of 2012, but written in October 2011. Your conscience is the absent partner dancing in the graveyards of Hamburg, Germany. Bracing reins with your face, eyes closed, a waltz in your feet, elbows crashing through rose thorns. You sneeze out of one nostril, though. Without a person of blessing, the void elicits its own contempt. The chorus sings on a balustrade and breaks into ominous laughter, freezing your statuette sorrow. That was Your Conscience is the Absent Partner. And this next one is I'm Loving Someone Away. And this is actually a song. This is an a cappella song. So a little bit of a preview before I pull out the guitar here and do some song tonight. So here we go. Let's see if I can remember this. I'm loving someone away, taking pains by myself to sustain a note in our vocal cord that with her I hardly ever sang. Fly, the tiny black angels fly around my head. Their sigh never turned astray. While we split our optic nerves, gazing one and another way. I'm sewing up my pink mouth that spoke so sweet and softly did bathe in a rain of thoughts so gray, for your ear to bend to me like grass blade. Smoke screens, the bees forget the flowers and the queen just one day. But darkness follows anywhere it tastes of honey carelessly thrown away. I'm boarding up windows and doors, keeping bells in my head to ring, ring, ring. Every minute I mistake any old headlight that happens to peek in. Smoke screens, they all go blind, taking what's ahead for what's behind. And I'm loving someone away, gazing at one and another woman, gazing at one and another woman. That was I'm Loving Someone Away. Okay, so this is big. The next three poems, and then the last poem of tonight, very different with the format. I would accredit this to Nelson exposing me to the work of Geoffrey Hill, and in particular to his lectures as professor of poetry at Oxford University, and the subsequent influence that had on how I thought about poetics and my own voice. So I think that's going to come across in the poem pretty clearly. This one is called Visions Vacuous. Forgetting is not transcending, you drunkard of empty. Act as if vacuums weren't filling like lungs perpetually. Watermelon seeds now malign, anatomized, no anesthetized, without sinking one blade. Wasn't fit the way you'd spit, tongue a tiny bother, burden of a memory so sway a pencil end to DNA, science sluiced tomfoolery. Don't try, for those lips drop bottom and noses in at acculturated deafness. Visions vacuous upon the cloud of the nothing tears no tears from a nightmare, just empty sockets. Theories of non-feeling? Well, it's deep and it's dug. So pull up your bucket, suck sobering sad face on a tit of milkmaid paid proportionate. This next one's called Gibbet Rudely. Gibbet rudely. Gibbet rudely beside poverty's vat of rendered fat. Carefully tiptoe the round meniscus brimmed above the limits of our body mechanics. No machine, no bother. Wheel away your absence to our service station bays. We harbor the torn animus in situ of spiritus. If liberty, then responsibility. If tyranny, then democracy, irrespective destitution. Let me start that over. If liberty, then responsibility. If tyranny, then democracy, irrespective destitution makes a mock unity. Run a muck polity. Without king, no humility. Throne filled as coffers coin plugged. Your donations are thankless elections. Rolling loose, jammed, all butt of joke and slander, stuck pig with stuffed affectation. Bare-boned as skin closed over skull mantle memory, so begin us the trepanning. Revolting history knocked out of mind, out of time, out of the material, poorly defined. This one's called Urge Song. He gazed into a window optimistically, drinking in fresh the joker of laxity. Fixtures hidden folded up in the smile on his cheek, eyebrows red with recompense and crooked constipation. He massaged a temple ceremoniously, thinking it another hand light female, motherly, smoothing out the rigid from toenail to finger bone, ailments of the energies which doctoring condoned. He stepped back looking wondrously at the monkey's paw, scooped slyly beneath its own limber red bowels, and against the glass shaking, irony dropped out the tongue of laughter's infinite excrement. This next one's our last one for the night, and then I'll be playing some music, and it's to Wesley Hartley. It's called Portland's. Casco Bay is no river, and the Willamette not a bay. So the salt is that which separates fundamentally the Portland of Oregon and that of Maine. Come second is the redness of 3, the rust-worn metals of Atlantic winds, the brick wave sidewalks over deciduous roots, and the Maynards' faces and colors of cold like quilts, pink and white round their bones. Such history of the dead colonies before westward ox cart migration, or even the birth of our young nation, cannot be seen or felt in the Cascadian Portland streets, but here, from the grand observatory, cannon, cathedral, and cemetery speak aloud in new English of old English memories. My mother still wishes for whitewash and black shutters. Her blood is the Commonwealth kind, and partly so is mine. And on frozen lake and snow shoveled cave, by octagonal gazebo and penny arcade, I was brought up like the citizenry of Maine. Douglasford does not tower past on bus line, nor my east gleam pink in sunsets bright. But I see a spark, Portland flint and Portland tinder, that me and you share the same fire's glitter. And there we have it.